I should mention that since we have that question, can we type in the chat? Yes, definitely. If you're, if you don't want to really be on camera, we would like to see your faces every once in a while, just so that we can get to know you more. I appreciate the people that do have pictures. But what will happen is you guys, will have them introduce themselves, the returning students who are part of HBHE, which is our health behavior and health education student. I don't know if you call yourselves association anymore. Do you? Okay. They're part of our student organization that you, as being a student, are definitely a part of regardless, but you could then join them in some other kind of official manner. And I think they sent a letter out to you, an email out to you recently about how you can join the committee. So they could probably talk to you a little bit about that if you're interested and have some questions. But what I think we'll do is just, what I was going to say is you can put your information that you would like shared or questions you want to ask in the chat, and I will help our committee members manage that. So you guys, if you see, a question that you want to take, feel free to take it. But if I see something that you've missed, I will jump in and ask that you answer it. And why don't we get started and have you guys introduce yourselves and what your interest areas are maybe, and maybe share it, just in interest of time, sharing at least one thing that you wished you would have known prior to starting your classes as a first year student. So feel free, Jordan, you want to go first?
Yeah, absolutely. I can start. So hi, everyone. My name is Jordan, and I'm a second year MPH student in the Health Behavior and Health Education program. And then I actually just recently became a dual major and in the Health Infrastructure and Learning Systems major as well. So I'm still kind of exploring my interests, but I definitely have a passion for working with younger kids and youth, involving their health, and I'm focusing on that this summer through my internship. And one thing that I definitely wish I would have known before starting classes is that it is okay to reach out directly to your professor and ask them questions or for help or for extensions. That's something that I didn't really do in my undergrad a lot. And so I think when I came in, I was definitely a little nervous to do that. But I quickly realized that they are all absolutely here to support and help us and are willing to either assist you or get you where you need for help. So I will pass it off to Brianne if you want to go next.
So I'm Brianne. I am also a second year in HBHE. And my interest lies also, working with kids and families. I'm focused on injury science. That's my internship for the summer as well. I actually don't know what I wish I would have known. Similar to Jordan, I think, just asking for the things that you need. That's something I struggled with, is asking for help in general, but everyone is very willing to help you. So just asking, it never hurts to ask. So, yeah. Gabby, do you want to go next?
So my name is Gabby. I'm also a second year HBHE. I'm also a dual degree with genetic counseling. So I'm actually going into my third year of grad school. I guess my focus lies on health disparities in the field of genetics, but just health disparities in general as well. One thing I wish I knew, and I feel like we just went into the unknown for our second year or our first year of HBHE because of COVID, but I guess one thing I still want to know is what to order at, is it Java Blue at SPH? I have never ordered food there, so Jackie, I'll be looking for some recommendations when we come back in person.
Sounds like a plan. I'm also interested in what they're going to do because, you know, what kind of measures they have to follow. So I'm also interested, but they have coffee, which is very important.
Oh yeah. Do they have $1 refills? I know some Java Blues do.
Yeah, there's something like that. Yeah.
Okay. We'll see. Mary Grace, you're next.
All right. Thanks, Gabby. Yeah, I'm Mary Grace. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm also a second year HBHE. Really, yeah, really excited for another year and see how this one is a little bit different, and get to meet people from our second year cohort and also first year. So that's exciting, something I'm looking forward to. My interest areas are also working with kids and families, specifically social work side. I'm not dual degree social work, but I have some background and I'm really interested in grief and loss particularly, and working with kids and families specifically through that. Do a lot of work with COVID-19 with the University of Michigan and Washtenaw County. But really the reason that I applied to the MPH program is for chronic disease prevention and maintenance as well, specifically with cancer. So that's a special place in my heart. And if anyone's familiar with Camp Cussum, I have some connections with the University of Michigan through that as well. Yeah, and then something that I wish I would have known going into my first year, it's not really something that I would know, but I had major imposter syndrome. Like, I just thought I didn't know anything and like really low confidence at the beginning. And I'm not much of a Zoom virtual person. I feed off of people's energy, like in the room, and make like small connections, one-on-one conversations. So it really pushed me to connect in different ways, like through GroupMe or emails and stuff. But I wish that I would have known it's okay to be a little nervous. And yeah, and you know, everyone is trying to put up a front, and some of it's not a front. Like, we hope to be confident in ourselves, but it's okay to lack a little confidence, and it'll boost as time goes on. Yeah.
That is so true. That is the main thing that I hear from almost every student is like, they feel like they don't know anything, or yeah, and the imposter syndrome is real. And the people you think have it all together are just like you. They're questioning everything. And that's why we say it's always, you know, don't be afraid to ask questions. Even if you think it's silly, never, ever be afraid to ask your questions, because, you know, we can help direct you and also make you feel comfortable, and put you in touch with other people with similar interests maybe as you, whether it be another student or a faculty member. So I think that's key. The key number one advice is never be afraid to ask your question. So with that, why don't we get started and have you guys feel free to, either you can jump on and ask your question in the video, or you can put it in the chat. Feel free.
Hi, my name is Nora. I'm an incoming HBHE graduate student. I'm doing the 2-year master's program. I'm currently just interested in like pursuing research while pursuing my degree. So I'm really looking into opportunities to get involved. And I think one of my questions really is, how do you recommend beginning a research project? Would you recommend reaching out to professors before starting the semester, or potentially just, you know, gaining a connection with your professor, for example, in a course, or just sending out emails? What's the best way that you would recommend getting involved in research?
I'll go. I guess it's up to you. Like if you already know a professor in the topic or field that you're looking to do research, like I don't think it hurts to like email them right now. I think all of them are really open to having students do research with them. Um, I guess if you're not really sure then about the topic that you want to do research, maybe wait a little bit until orientation, where you get to meet like pretty much all the faculty, and they will talk about like their research interest, and from there you can email them or meet with them. So it really depends on whether you have like a topic set or not.
I'll jump in there real quick. During orientation, and it's looking like it will probably be a Thursday morning, is when you're going to meet the faculty. And it's going to be kind of breaking out into groups, most likely, and just really, comfortable. Our faculty, I think, are all very open and comfortable to talk with, but they'll share about their research interest. And then you can go ahead and they'll probably share a little bit about what positions they may have available or who to contact in their study, their research projects, like who the program coordinators are for that or project coordinators are. So more information about that is coming. Kieran and I have been working on trying to do some things throughout the summer, like these kind of things where we're having like maybe 1 hour info sessions kind of, so that week of orientation isn't so overwhelming. So let's see, does anybody go ahead?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, go ahead. I just had like one follow-up question after that, but I don't want to interrupt. So.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I know you mentioned just like summer before, we'll have the orientation pretty soon. That's towards the end of the summer. Is it common for incoming students to, have preparations during the summer before they start their master's program, or do they mainly just kind of, enjoy their summer before going in? Like what's the norm, I want to say?
It's just you enjoying your summer. We're not going to expect anything really out of you. We might suggest a book. We haven't talked about that yet with a couple of faculty members, but that would be all it is you just getting familiar with the material that we're sending out, and so that you're able to ask your questions during orientation.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yep.
I actually think that falls into the first question in the chat pretty well, is just to take some time and like mentally prepare yourself for grad school and just like take a break, because once it starts, it's all going to go very fast. So yeah, just like take that time and actually let yourself have a break. I know personally, I always want to be doing something and be busy, but having that time to just relax and let yourself, chill out before school starts is also very helpful. So just being mindful of that. That's one thing I did before starting too, because I was coming from a gap year and I was like, I just need to take a little break and then start. So that was helpful.
I just noticed, Vishaka, you joined us. Did you want to introduce yourself and say what your interest areas are? And then like one thing you wish you would have known prior to starting classes last year?
I think she's going to type, but Vishaka is actually sick. So is kind of here to just help monitor the chat and just be present. But Vishaka is also part of Habisa and will also be a second year in the fall. So yeah. But definitely if you want to share that stuff in the chat, Vishaka, I think it's still helpful.
Oh, they were wondering, Jenny's wondering about part-time jobs and how to navigate that, school, working, getting to know each other. Anybody want to take that question?
Jordan, you want to go?
Yeah, absolutely. I can kind of start. So I think part-time jobs are definitely something that are, stressful but manageable in grad school. And I don't want to speak for everyone's experience, but I think, first of all, a lot of the professional professors and staff and everyone do a good job of sending out opportunities, and Jackie and Kieran do that a lot. So they send out opportunities that work well with grad students, so you can find things that are more accommodating for your schedule um, in general. And then I think just as far as finding public health specific ones, just checking out the vector and then using the resources that the university provides are really helpful. I know that I found my job through a posting that just came through an email to me. And I did COVID casework for the university all year. And so very much public health related, and something that I probably wouldn't have even looked into. So I definitely recommend just kind of starting and looking around and seeing what you can find, and figuring out kind of what your needs are as well, because that's going to play a big part in it. Because, ultimately you're there for school. And so you want to make sure that you're able to do that kind of in conjunction. So that's kind of what I did and how I managed it all. And then I just really think communicating with your boss as well, is something that was super important. So when I started out, I just explained where I was, and like my schooling and what was happening, and kind of if I had any accommodations or expectations for what I needed, given my time and everything. And so that just really helped set like a good baseline for both of us of like how to proceed then and, really manage everything. And it gave me more flexibility, that way if it was like midterms or something, I could kind of, maybe not work the full 20 to 30 hours that week instead. So that's kind of how I managed it, but I don't know if anyone else wants to chip in or share their thoughts about managing part-time jobs and kind of finding public health specific work.
Yeah, I can touch a little bit. So I was doing COVID-19 contact tracing with the university, pretty much starting in the fall, and Jordan really hit it, like communicating with your supervisors, um, and just making sure that self-care also is a part of that. There were times in like February, March time, I was like, whoa, this is a little bit much. And like able to talk about it with my supervisor, who's so understanding, and that's really been a huge part of the people that I've met through U of M. Just very supportive, especially in HBHE, of us as a whole person. Um, Another thing, so I found this position through the Public Health Action Support Team, FAST, if anyone has heard of it. So that's originally how I got involved, and it was looking like a volunteer opportunity, and then it turned into a job. So sometimes those volunteer opportunities are something to really get involved in if those are your interests. I also for my Apex project, one of them this summer, I totally like just emailed the Michigan Medicine Department of it's the Office of Decedent Affairs. So they work with families who have lost a loved one within the Michigan Medicine at the hospital. I received care from Michigan Medicine, and yeah, I was just like, hey, I'm interested in the work that you're doing. I'm looking to fulfill the Apex product, which is kind of related to our talk about a part-time, but I'm sure that they were so helpful in getting me connected with the right people. And it's okay to email somebody or call and just say, these are my interests and I see the work that you're doing and where can I help out. And sometimes it'll lead to something great that you don't even expect, maybe like working with them for a month, but then it turns into a whole year. So yeah, just follow your interests is something that I would suggest and support.
Yeah, and to add to that, don't get discouraged especially if it's faculty you're reaching out to, if they don't respond to you right away. I would suggest being very clear, like a good subject line so that they're understanding what you're asking about. And then be kind of short in your question to them about the research that you're interested in and hoping to maybe work with them. And then they'll get back to you. Because one thing I want to say too is in the summer, our faculty are on 9-month appointments. So in the summer, they're spending the time writing, pursuing their research interests. Some are, working in reviewing journals. So they are busy in the summer. So don't be discouraged if they don't respond to you right away. And never be afraid to follow up with another email to them if they don't respond. Emily is asking about the workload of having 5 classes. Like what is that like for you guys? And how did you balance that?
Yeah, I think personally, I mentioned this before, I took a gap year. So I was actually kind of concerned about that coming back in because I hadn't been in school for a year and I didn't really know how that was going to go. But I think, knowing what you need to do, like what works best for you to stay organized is really important because it's definitely manageable, but there is a lot going on because you're in 5 different classes. And depending on how involved you want to be in SPH, and if you're also trying to have a job, it's really important to stay organized. And what I found that worked best for me was just like week by week, I would plan out my entire week, like what needed to get done on certain days so that I knew what my week was going to look like and I wouldn't be really overwhelmed later on when I'm like, I have all this stuff I have to get done by the end of the week. I was able to spread it out a little bit more and do a couple of things every day instead of like all of the things on like one day. So just finding what works best for you to keep everything organized is definitely very important. And like write everything down. Like just make sure you keep track of everything somewhere because that really helps a lot.
Does anybody else have any other advice to add to that?
I'll just chip in really quick. I think it just goes back to, again, when I said earlier, also like not being afraid to ask questions or communicate. I know that that was a concern that some of us like in our cohort chat expressed early on when we were feeling overwhelmed that we weren't sure, if it was okay to reach out and say that to our professor or, say that to even your peers. But I think it's definitely something that we all experience when we're juggling a lot. And so if you are like struggling to manage those classes at all and you haven't found, something that works for you, don't be afraid to touch base with the professor in a class or, numerous and say, I'm just, having a hard time. What, do you have any suggestions? Is there anything that I can do? And then also your peers, because a lot of times we would, someone would say, I'm so struggling to, complete X in this class. And someone else would be like, oh, here's how I'm doing it. Or, oh, here's a resource I have for you. And so I think when you have the like open channel of communication, you can get a lot of resources that also will then, help you kind of figure out what works best for you, like Brianne said, and you managing everything.
Oh, let's see. Katie, hi Katie, says I'm an admitted student for next fall in this area. I'm also interested in global health and am I able to stay in HBHE and do global health? Yes, you can take global health classes. Typically, most of the global health classes across the school and are open to everybody. As long as they're the 500 level, you can count that towards your master's. But what you also want to look at is maybe the global health certificate. The global health certificate is back. So there'll be a session, I think, after classes start. I think it's right after classes start. That's the idea anyway, where they're going to talk more about the certificate programs in the school that you can attend some sessions to see if it's something you want to do or you're interested in. Does anybody else do a certificate? Nope.
I'm doing the injury science certificate, but so I can't really speak to the global health one,
But you're doing a certificate. You want to
Yes, I am.
explain like why you maybe decided to do a certificate and how it works within your schedule?
Yeah, so I kind of just stumbled upon that, honestly. And it just kind of sparked my interest. I mean, injury science focuses on a lot of different topics, but um there was a lot of kind of opportunity in that to be working in injury prevention, like with children, which is something that was interesting to me. And also in my gap year, I was an AmeriCorps member working on like overdose work and stuff. And that's also a big part of the injury science. So that kind of is why I was interested in that. But then incorporating it into my schedule has been pretty easy. I think outside of the classes that you're required to take each semester, there's a lot of flexibility for electives. And so it's been easy to fit in those classes. And those classes have been some of the like my favorite ones I've taken so far. So yeah, if you're interested in any of those certificates, I definitely recommend. It's pretty easy to make it fit with everything else. So yeah. Jackie, you're muted.
My mouse just doesn't always work. If anybody's doing the CHIP program, or do you know anybody who's doing the CHIP certificate? No. I'll have to look. I will make a note of that, and we'll look for some students that are doing CHIP, because I
Yeah.
think we have at least a couple.
Yeah, there's definitely someone we can probably connect you with.
Oh, is anyone pursuing dual majors?
I guess, is there a specific one you are interested in? I think it depends with each school.
Do you mean dual, Oksana, do you mean dual majors within the School of Public Health, or just doing 2 degree programs?
I guess both. So my question really was if there's a specific process to it. So let's say you're interested in doing a second major. So do you first go to your own advisor? Do you try to reach out to someone within health and behavior, and then, or do you go to that major? So I'm not sure how to go about it. I guess it's just the process itself.
Okay, well, I will talk about the who you talk to stuff. I would suggest having a conversation with your advisor. You're going to have time during orientation, sometime around that week, or maybe the first week of class, where you're going to actually meet your advisor and get to know each other a little bit. So I would suggest sharing your goals and your thoughts about doing this, a dual, whether it's, like you said, whether it's a dual degree or a dual with another program within public health. And sharing your goals, because they can at least tell you if they think it's really necessary, because you do have some flexibility to take electives outside of your department. You can take them anywhere on campus. So they may have suggestions for classes you might want to take if they know what your goals are. That wouldn't require you to stay on an extra year. But if let's say that you really are interested in policy change, and you start taking like some classes over in the Ford School, then you realize, what I want to do, I realize I really need to have that degree to do that. Then that would be, of course, what you would do is then talk to that other program, and probably talk to like a program coordinator like me. I know in public health, there's a program coordinator, at least one in every department, if not more. Explain what you might want to do. Ask if it's what kind of application process they have, because if you're already a student, they might have an internal university type of application they want you to fill out, instead of like, if you were just like, you filled out the SOFIS. We wouldn't not ask you to do the SOFIS again if you were applying within a school, would not do that to you. But they may also have suggestions of classes you might want to try to take in, for their program, just to see if this is a good fit. And most likely I would suggest, if you have an idea, this is what you want to do, have conversations early. Is anybody else want to add? Did anybody else add oh, Jordan, you did. Did you have anything to add to that?
I don't know. I think just kind of echoing, like really making sure to look ahead and get that communication started earlier rather than, later, which sounds easy enough. But sometimes the wheels can move kind of slowly as you try and kind of pull all these different pieces together. So definitely just take the time to kind of sit down and plan it all out. And something that was really helpful for me was, meeting with, I met with Jackie, and then I also met with the program coordinator in the other program, and just kind of walking through it from both sides, and figuring out logistically if it worked, and if it was something that I could really fit into my schedule. And doing that really helped kind of ease my mind and move the process along, I think, because it can be sometimes hard to fit all that together, and you want to make sure that you obviously meet all the requirements. So I would definitely recommend talking to some individuals, like Jackie said, and just really making sure that you're getting that started sooner, and then looking into those processes and making sure that you know that, because it's different for different programs and schools. And so mine isn't housed within the School of Public Health, but it's still at obviously the university, and it's in the Rackham Graduate School. So I didn't have to go through like the whole application process again. It was like only partial, but I didn't realize that initially. And so I did just start like a regular application, and then they like reached out and they're like, hey, actually, you can do this one and it's like half the time. And I was like, oh, that would have been good to know. So definitely just looking ahead, I think. And I don't know if Gabby, you have anything to add as a dual major, dual degree student.
I don't really have anything to add. I mean, I second everything that has been said. I think I already came in with a dual. I just added my certificate, and with everything, it takes planning. They will ask you to basically map out, the credits, what you're going to take every semester. So you need to be really proactive and like mapping out, like this semester I'm going to be taking these classes, and by the end of all these years, I'm going to have all these like X number of credits. Which ones am I going to double count? Which ones are only counting for one specific program? So it definitely takes a little bit of planning ahead of time. But everybody's there to support you. Jackie and your advisor are there. So any questions you have, just make sure to reach out to them. But I second everything that Jordan and Jackie have said.
Well, I want to share that we are working on some kind of tracking sheets to help with dual degrees, and well, just anybody. We're not going to require that people fill them out, because we talked about that, because it's good for like having one-on-one conversations. But just know that that's something that we're going to be sharing this summer, hopefully, so that can help you manage your plan. Let's see. Oh, here's a good question. How did you make the most out of your online classes? What's one thing you wish you would have known before or done differently? We kind of touched on some of this. And I'll just quickly answer a question about microwaves. Yes, there's microwaves around the school and refrigerators to store, but we don't know if there's any guidelines yet as far as COVID goes. Does anybody want to answer the online class question?
You just wanted to know how we made the most of it. Is that what you said? Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I think at times, I mean, I just tried my best. Like personally, I tried my best to like stay engaged. And one way to do that is to have my camera on so that I'm like forcing myself to pay attention. because it's very easy to get distracted when you're sitting at home. And you can just kind of like do whatever while class is going, which I will say sometimes that's nice to be able to step away, especially because I had a few classes last semester that were 3 hours long, and I actually ended up with a block of class that was 6 hours. And so I needed to take that time and like step away. But yeah, that was one thing, just trying to keep my camera on and like stay as engaged as I could. But yeah, it definitely has its pros and cons. I am looking forward to possibly going to class in person. So
Are there any classes or electives that you recommend or are extremely popular?
I think one class for me at least that was really fun was motivational interviewing with Ken Resnikow. So HBHE, I think 675. Ken is amazing. He's just like a great professor, and the class is really fun. You're learning real, like real life skills, I guess. And it's a 3-hour class, but it never really seemed like it was like too much or I was like overwhelmed or tired because it's very interactive. So that's one that I would recommend people take. Other people have other suggestions.
Yeah, what about outside of the department?
I can speak a little bit on that. So I ventured out a bit, and social stratification was a really interesting class. Doesn't like quite hit on health explicitly, but it's all public health. We talked about education system. We just I really like that class. I know it's not taught by the same professor this coming fall, um, but I have heard that the professor who is teaching it is awesome, also really awesome. It is a lot of reading, just a heads up. Another class that I took in the School of Business, and I am like not business minded at all. But this course is called Flourishing at Work, basically how to cultivate individual flourishing in an organization, mostly a workplace in that context, that helps a whole organization flourish. Really very interesting. I think personally, I think that health equity could have been discussed a lot more in the class, but that's something that I was able to bring in smaller group discussions, which was very fruitful, talking to business MBAs and having a public health background. So that is a really a class where I saw a lot of growth in myself, and then expanding on explaining how with others and learning together how public health is really everything. So yeah, those are two that I would really that I would recommend that are outside of SPH.
I thought about doing something and I would like your feedback. Like, what if we put together like just a Google Doc that everybody has access to, that kind of puts this running kind of spreadsheet together about classes that you found that were, good across campus that relate to public health? Does anybody have an opinion about that? Because we used to have something from years ago that some students put together that, but I can't find where it is ever since we've switched between, Canvas and C tools and all this stuff. I think it got lost along the way. So maybe that's something that we can put together and share with everyone. I think Vishaka is answering about biostat, but it might be helpful for people to hear about the intro to biostat or applied, the 501 to 521. Does anybody want to talk about that at all?
I would say take intro to biostats. I don't know. I'm just like, I love Tom Brown. So he's an amazing professor. If like, I knew coming into HBHE that biostats was gonna be like okay, and that I wouldn't be okay with biostats. I wouldn't have like worried so much about it at the beginning, but 501 was with Tom Brown, and he is an amazing professor in biostats. It's nothing for you to like be super concerned about. He like definitely just wants you to learn. He's like super supportive. So I don't know, if unless you want to learn more about biostats, like advanced biostats, I would definitely recommend taking the intro one.
I
I'm
think
recovering from laryngitis, so if my voice goes, I'm sorry. So I was the one who took 521, and as I said, it's a little above the basic, and then we also learn about the R software. So you need to have a basic hold of statistical principles in order to be able to perform in that class. Was that clear?
Yeah, I think just kind of jumping into my undergrad was in public health, and so I did intro. I did 501 when I came in for my MPH, and I definitely think it was like a good reintroduction. But if you've taken a biostats or a couple biostats classes before and you want to challenge yourself, then I would definitely recommend maybe checking out the other one. I think in retrospect, I might have gained a little bit more, but 501 is still a really great class. And like Gabby said, Tom Ron is an awesome professor. So it's a really good course either way. I think it just kind of depends on what you're looking for and what your experience is.
yeah, I can add that he has done amazing work with that class. What I really appreciate about Tom is that he's taken the time to get to know HBHE and HMP students actually. And they understand that you guys won't be doing this work, but you need to understand it. So they've taken a different approach a little bit with HBHE and HMP students to make sure that you understand, which is, they're trying not to teach above your head. I'm sorry, I don't have anything to block my son right now. I think somebody mentioned about wait lists. Does anybody want to share their experience with wait lists? Wait list getting onto class, like have you been on a wait list, and have you ever been able to really get in, and like what do you have any advice about that?
I don't know if anyone else, I actually have been very fortunate. I've not experienced that. So yeah, I don't know if anyone else has, but I have not been on a wait list so far. So I've gotten lucky.
I've been on a wait list, but generally, like within the last week before semester starts, they generally enroll you in. So I've been very lucky to get off wait lists.
I was waitlisted for one class this past semester that I did not get into. And so I think the biggest recommendation I have is really take the time to look and find another class and don't bank on it. Or if you like really feel very strongly about it, reach out to the professor as well. Occasionally they do have some extra room, or they can make exceptions, or they'll kind of provide you with an update. So in this case, I reached out and there really wasn't any more room in that class. And so that kind of was like a sign for me where I was able to be like, okay, probably won't come off the wait list for this one. So I built something else into my schedule for it. But that was one instance. Otherwise, I've been fortunate not to be waitlisted for anything else. But I think it's definitely just good to have a backup plan and or reach out to that professor and just ask them kind of where they're at with that course and if there's any flexibility so that you can kind of get a better sense of how to move forward with it.
Yeah, I will share that, right now, before we were doing planning for 6 feet, now we're planning for 3 feet between students. So that for some faculty may have reduced their capacity because we only have so many classrooms. We're trying to keep as many classes within the School of Public Health that we can. So that limited some faculty from letting more people in. Like I can think of like the GIS class, because Ritesh teaches it in one of these computer labs. And so for right now, there can only be 13 people in that classroom, that computer lab classroom. So that's unfortunate that we're going to have more people be on wait list. But I can tell you that once the second years start to re-engage with coming back to school, they're looking through their schedules, and I'm sure you guys will all do this, where you're like, okay, is this the class that I really want to take? Or now that I've done my internship, do I have different goals in mind and have different needs? So once they do that, it's a big domino effect. And, all it takes is one or two people to start shifting, and then everything goes. So I don't want you to be discouraged, but I would say if you're like in a number 10 spot, it might not be likely. So maybe have a plan B or C, just to get to know. And sometimes, branching out into these other programs across campus, it's some of the best things that some of our students have done for themselves, is to take advantage of that. You see it as a positive in some way where you can go and learn something else new that's maybe not directly public health related. I think let's share information about laptops, because I know this is a common question that I get. So I see Vishaka shared some information, but does anybody want to speak to that a little bit more?
So obviously everything was online, so I think it might be a little hard to speak just from lack of experience here. I think it's definitely manageable without a laptop, though, kind of like Vishaka said, if you're, not in a class that requires it. The only thing that kind of comes to mind for me about having that is, even in classes that weren't necessarily, using software specifically, I felt like there were a lot of instances where we would go to online resources while we were doing work in class, and most of the articles and stuff that are posted that we read are lengthier. And so if you ever want to like reference those in class, that's just my personal preference. I like to kind of have it with me, but it's definitely something that I think you can manage either way, but just something to kind of be mindful of, because I think readings are pretty heavy in a lot of HBHE classes, and we reference them a lot in class. And so having those readily available to kind of use was helpful for me, but some people go solely off their notes. So if that's how you operate, then go for it. So I think it's just kind of a personal preference, but I think it is manageable either way.
Oh, I get it.
I was gonna say my first year in grad school, I was still in person, and I took a couple HBHE classes that had, like, you had to have your computer because you needed to access Canvas. Like the professor would have put like group work resources that were on Canvas, and you had to access during class. So I'm pretty sure like professors are willing to accommodate, but there might be instances where they might be like assuming that you have your computer with you and say like, okay, all the resources are on Canvas, like work in your group and use whatever is posted. But yeah, that's just one, I guess, limitation that I was thinking about if you don't have a computer with you in class.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar to that. Just like often we had a lot of group work, and so you would be working on like a presentation on your computer or something. But I think that goes back to the communication piece. It's just communicating with your professor that you don't have a laptop, because that's totally fine. But just making sure that you have communicated that and you can still make sure that you're prepared for class, and that it's not going to, cause you any issues to not have it.
Okay, I want to get to this question about internships, but I thought I'd answer Oksana's message about online classes for the upcoming semester. So the majority of the classes we're trying to have in person, but any class I think that is typically 60 students or over are going to be remote for the fall. We don't know yet what's going to happen for the winter semester. I think a lot will depend on how many people are vaccinated. A lot will depend on if there's other state mandates. If, and then if COVID, if we have a new variant come through that seems to be hitting hard, because we have to be prepared. We've been told we have to be prepared to be able to flip things quickly if needed. But for right now, everybody's going to be required to wear a mask in the classroom. But if you're vaccinated, and if you haven't done this yet, if you're vaccinated, you can upload your vaccine card to prove that, and then you're free to, not wear a mask pretty much across campus, except for in the classroom for right now. So like I said, we don't know what the winter semester is going to be like, but for this semester, this first semester, anything, so your cohort classes like 600, biostat, all those are going to be remote. I do want to get to this question from Kaya though. How did you go about selecting your internship?
So mine was kind of simple, I guess, because I was doing the injury science certificate. And part of that certificate requirement is that you complete an internship that is like injury related. And the university's injury prevention center offers internships. And I applied to that in, I want to say, like by December. So it was like November, December that application opened, which is pretty early. So if you're interested in that, just be mindful that that's, that'll be fall semester that happens. But I applied to that, and then I ended up getting offered a spot with them in like, I think it was January. And now that's what I'm doing for the summer. So I had a pretty easy, I guess, path to my internship.
Yeah, I think, so I mentioned this earlier, just really utilizing those resources. So Jackie and Kieran pass a lot of things on. And so that's actually how I came across my internship, was an email. My supervisor passed along the posting, and it was sent out to us. But prior to that, I had just kind of relied on, we have a space on Canvas where they post a lot of different resources and like, search engines and stuff. And then just really also taking a look at what kind of internship you want. So I know that they'll give you more information on this, but there are different timelines kind of from federal versus, maybe more local ones. So definitely looking at that. But I was fortunate, that mine was local. So mine's through the university. I'm working for Poverty Solutions and then the county. And so it was just kind of a matter of applying to a bunch of different opportunities that I liked and then going through the interviews. And I would say definitely over apply versus under apply, just because there are a lot of people looking for internships, and it's a requirement, or it was a requirement of the program. It wasn't because of COVID, and I don't know what it'll look like in the future, but but I know that that was something that people kind of struggled with, that there were more limited options, I think, this year. So definitely something to be mindful of just with COVID. Hopefully that won't be an issue as we continue to kind of transition out. But I think it's if you feel very strongly about a specific path or area that you want to work in, definitely throw a wide net and just see what you can get.
I would say network your way into, like, we often have these networking events. One of my internships I got through networking. So I started like volunteering for this organization that I was interested in. I just became like friends with them. And so when it came time to, I guess, complete an internship, I was like, hey, I'm really interested in interning with you. I know you don't have like a official position, but I would love to help. Would you be willing to like take me in as an intern? And the process for becoming an intern through SPH is not, it doesn't require that much documentation. So, it doesn't require, I don't know, like an agreement between the two, like the school and the organization you're interning with. So it's like fairly easy for you to like create your own position if the organization is willing to take you in. So definitely like start networking early and trying to figure it out, what you're interested in, so that when it comes time, you can hopefully like create your own position or ask for a position in certain organizations.
I also, like Gabby said, emphasize about networking. My internship came through just by telling people, hey, I'm looking for an internship, whether and leading to other connections. And it has been really fruitful I knew I wanted to stay local. So yeah, working with my supervisor, and she sat down with me graciously and said, okay, what are your priorities? Was really invested, and it was kind of like a hard time because there were some ups and downs in the road, like had my heart set on some, and then like received a no, you're not accepted, and it's okay. And so being honest about that with her, and she was really supportive. So I think like just the more people that you tell you're looking for an internship, the better, and will really help make connections that also may not be for an internship, but maybe a future job or a volunteer opportunity. So they'll lead to something, whether it might be an internship or something else.
Okay, well, it looks like we're at 7 o'clock. Is there any last minute questions anybody has that didn't get addressed? Feel free to speak up. Let's see, I'm just scrolling through here. It looks like we've pretty much answered everything. Thank you, Vishaka. Let's see. One thing I want to mention, that during the orientation week, when somebody mentioned about how to get involved, Isabella, we're going to invite Danny Cole, who heads up our student organizations and well, we're calling it student life now. So she's going to share some of that about how different ways you can get involved on campus. I think it's going to happen again. I mean, you guys, as returning students, didn't get to experience all the stuff that happens on campus in Ann Arbor on any given night. So I'm sure a lot of that is starting to spark again. So we're always sharing information. If anything, read the vector. I know it's hard for the returning students too, because you get so many emails, but the vector always has really good information to share about things, events going on. Always read Karen and my emails. If I tell you anything that's advice, that is one thing, because we'll make sure, like if we see something that maybe the registrar shared, but we're not getting a lot of questions or comments from students, that's assigned to us that people missed it. So we will reshare some information to make sure and point out things that you may have missed. So I think what we'll do then is, if you guys want to go ahead and share your contact information, if you're willing, your email address. So in case anybody wants to follow up with any of you, that would be great.
So really quickly, I just sent a Google Doc in the chat. I will also email this out to just like the general first year listserv after. But we just compiled some advice from our organization for all of you. And I also included our HBHE email. So if you have any questions, definitely email us. We're happy to answer. And then, yeah, Sarah, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was just kind of wondering how busy, or what did your first week look like? Because I made the brilliant idea to move to Michigan 2 days before class starts.
Personally, I think you'll be okay. It's probably going to be a little hectic, but it's manageable. You'll be okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I moved in 2 days before classes started, and I am from out of state. I live 9 hours away, and so I was like super duper nervous that it was going to be like an absolute like mess, but it was totally fine. Like I definitely managed. So it like seems overwhelming, but it's all good. I think the first week is definitely like more like an introductory week, and getting into the swing of things. So definitely got this.
The only other advice I might share, that let's say that you run into some moving complications and there is a class that is not required, you're registered into an elective class, please notify the instructor of what's going on, because we would hate for them to like kind of give up your seat because you're not there. Because some of them, I mean, they don't do that really quickly. They typically don't, but you know, there's a lot of people eager to get into these classes. So you might want to just notify the instructors if you run into any complications. Okay. Thanks, everyone. And as always, if you have any follow-up questions for me after this, feel free to email and get back to you. But look forward to receiving more emails from Kieran and I, more webinars that you can participate in. We're trying to do like once every 3 weeks, maybe, before classes start. Okay? So thank you so much. You all have a good evening.